Finally, it's snowing. I arrived up here in the Austrian Alps in Lech yesterday, and the forecast was snow for today, and it did not lie, which was a nice change because it has not snowed that much recently. It's still early days, it's still early winter, but I am in the right car, in the right place, back onto my snow videos, super excited. Anyway, I am in the brand new Porsche Cayenne S Coupe from Porsche Switzerland. I've had this now for the last week. Tomorrow evening I have to give it back, sadly, and I do really mean sadly because this has quickly become a bit of a dream daily driver for me. I'm not a big SUV guy, but I really have enjoyed driving this so much, and way more than I ever would have thought, because as I said, in general I don't really enjoy SUVs, but this feels something else. So in today's video I thought I would simply sum up my week with this car and go and enjoy some snowy Austrian Alps, which is something I love to do. I'm staying at the Hotel Alberg again. I have my dog with me, not right now. I've got the dog box in the back. So I've been really enjoying this SUV the last week. You know, I've dog box in the back, taking Max with me everywhere, put skis in here. Yes, it probably is a bit of an overkill for me. You know, I don't have kids or anything, but I've been really using it, and it's just such a pleasure to be in. I honestly will be super sad to hand this back tomorrow evening. I would love to daily drive this now for the rest of the winter, no question. So as it's the S, we've got the V8 up front, putting out a super nice sound. So some points that I straight away love about this car, or SUV, and that's the interior. The interior is a big highlight. So you have this huge real estate of screens now, from the driver right across to the passenger, where you can sit watching some movies while you're driving, because it's got this special glass so I can't see the passenger screen while I'm driving. Or you can sit there and look at information about the car, for example. Everything is digital now. I personally like it. Proper V8, twin turbocharged V8. 468 horsepower. Honestly, it's fun, and it feels extra special because it now has the steering wheel from the 911. This is the GT Sport 911 wheel, so it's giving this extra special feeling and sporty feeling whilst driving, and of course just very nice to look at. Something else they fixed with the new dash, you can see everything through the steering wheel. When the 992 first came out, you had this new digital / retro design dash in front of you, but the problem was that the steering wheel cut off points, so you couldn't see the whole dash. But now that's been fixed, so you see everything through the steering wheel. Another point, the small toggle switch has been moved to up here, so to put it into drive, park, reverse, you move it up here just to the right hand side of the steering wheel instead of down here. I don't mind it at all. I think it works fine. Obviously I'm used to using Porsches down here, but I quickly got used to this. The plus side of having up here is that down here it's much more minimalistic now, so it's kind of cleared up the whole area. They've also got a new wireless charging port. I never used wireless charging on my phone because the phone's always overheated, so I just always plug my phone in. However, Porsche have now fixed that. The small compartment here for wireless charging now has a cooling system in, so your phone doesn't overheat. So this one in this configuration would cost 177,000 Swiss francs. If you don't know, Swiss franc and the euro are relatively the same. Base model before options, 129,000 Swiss francs. I personally think is quite good value for money. I know it's a lot of money, but I feel like it's really a lot of car. I never really was a big fan of these high performance SUVs. It didn't really make much sense to me. This is a very happy middle. It's got this sporty feeling. You can enjoy it on a mountain pass, no question. But at the same time, it's comfortable and practical. The color on this also super nice. It's called Algarve Blue. As in Algarve, I think from the region in Portugal. I guess the blue coming from the ocean there. I love these small white gold details around here as well. Porsche Switzerland did a super nice job with configuring this car. Okay, maybe one small negative if I really try to find something. I'm not a big fan of this push button start here on the left. I still wish Porsche would keep the key for all of their cars. I understand to certain clientele, maybe they just want this ease. But me personally, I would love to just put the key in, twist it. And also that you know where the key is. So many times with this keyless stuff, I'm losing the key. I'm leaving it in here, it's falling under the seat. It's in the side of the door. So now just driving through Lech. My hotel up there on the left, the Hotel Alberg. Heading up a bit of a back twisty road. As I said, you can have plenty of fun in this, bearing in mind it's a relatively heavy, I think over 2 tons SUV, but it doesn't feel like it at all. Super punchy, responsive SUV. Honestly, I'm so impressed with this. Quite a cool road this actually. Lots of grip, obviously winter tyres on, 4-wheel drive. No problem for this whatsoever. Forgot to mention something at the beginning of today's video also. Today's video is probably going to be an extra long video with some bonus footage at the end of today's video that relates to Lech and the hotel that I'm being in. I was supposed to tell you at the start, but I forgot. Most likely this is going to be my last video of the year, so I thought I would drop in this extra bonus footage and try and make today's video an extra long one for the last video of 2023. Because when I was last here at the end of the summer, as I said, the owners of the Alberg Hotel are super petrol heads. And one of them in particular owns such a special, unique car collection. And I filmed a video with him about his car collection. You'll see what I mean. Just listen to him talk about his somewhat secret and very unique car collection that he has up here. So most likely after today's video, I'm going to take 1 or 2 weeks off to recharge a bit, ready for January, ready for some more snow adventure videos up in the Alps. Looks fantastic up here. And doing it all in total luxury, because that's what this car is inside. So as I said, to finish off today's video, the next part will be some bonus footage that I've actually been sitting on now for a couple of months. And I've been waiting for a video of when I've been back up here to drop this extra footage in. And now it seems like the perfect time to end the year on such a nice story with Hannes. So it is a ciao for now from a very snowy Lech, and I shall see you all next year. Here is Hannes Schneider, and you are the owner of the hotel where I'm staying.
This is correct.
You've actually ordered a Porsche RS Spyder.
That's right.
And do you think yours is going to come before the end of summer?
Well, honestly, I don't believe it until I see it, because I've learned too many lessons in that respect. And when I learned, the main lesson is be patient and enjoy the ride.
As it turns out, Hannes has one of the most interesting car collections I've ever seen. It's very unique cars. And on the Cars with Luke channel, as most of you know, what I love is a good story that in the end makes everything, and Hannes has plenty of them. So what we're going to do, we are going to go down into the underground garage, and if you'd be so kind to show us all around and show us your cars and the stories.
More than happy to share the stories with you.
Forgot there is quite a special car up here that Hannes brought up this morning. Tell us a bit about this huge thing.
Is I would say this was the origin to everything. Why? Because this car, called Leopold, as you can say,
This is the name you've given it.
Well, I'm crazy enough to give all my cars names because they really deserve it.
They do.
And this is Leopold. Leopold, why Leopold? Because Leopold Schneider, my granddad, he was the first guy in Lech to own a car. He didn't have a driving license. The first car ever
in Lech.
Wow. And he didn't have a driving license. So there was a driver coming up from Dornbirn, which is a city about 1 hour from here, to take him around.
Wow.
And I inherited a little bit the love to cars from him.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So that's the beginning. It's a Peterson Special blower Bentley based on a chassis of a 1936 Bentley, which is an inline 6-cylinder, 4.5 liter displacement with a supercharger on top of that.
Really?
And this car is basically to do everything. He's from the, we did twice the Nuvolari, the small little sister of the Mille Miglia, as you know. And it's a wedding car. I think I probably did 30 weddings with that car, and knock on wood, all the weddings so far lasted. And this is another thing which I learned with my babies is don't look for your babies. They're going to find you. That's always the same thing. And I learned that as well with other car owners. Don't look for something. Be ready when it's there, and then it's going to get you. This is my small little recreation area. When I'm really feeling bad, that's where I end up with.
Also when you're feeling good, I guess.
Yes, that's it. The catalytic converter to various situations. This is the next one in the collection. You can see with all the other cars afterwards that I'm always looking into something a little bit special, out of the ordinary. And this is sterling, for good reason sterling. Why? Because this is a car which in original exists twice in the world. This is the Le Mans winning car of Aston Martin of 1959. 1959, a very interesting year because one car was driven by Stirling Moss. That's why it's Stirling. On top of that, Stirling Moss has his birthday on the same day than I do, on the 17th of September. And the other car was driven by Roy Salvadori and Carroll Shelby, who actually, Stirling Moss was pushing the 250 Ponton Ferraris pretty hard and suffered from an engine problem, from a gearbox problem. So he had to pull back, and the other two guys inherited the victory in Le Mans. And this car was iconic due to that reason, because when Ford tried to win Le Mans in the previous place, after they couldn't purchase Ferrari, as you know, they decided whether we're not able to buy you, so we're going to beat you at Le Mans. But then the big question arose, who is able to build us a particular car to win against Ferrari? And that's why Carroll Shelby came into play, because they needed a race car engineer, preferably from America, who understood what it meant to win Le Mans. And he was at that time the only American driver who have won recently Le Mans. That's who was given the contract to build this particular car, the GT40 for Ford.
And do you drive this one, or
I always try to get out my cars at least in the summertime 2 to 3 times a week, because that keeps them clean, that keeps the wheels round, that keeps the engine going, and it's always pure sheer fun.
Yeah, of course. And it's still registered on UK number?
It is not registered anymore. The GSV 975 is still on the car, because you find it quite a bit on the internet from that car. I'm a member at the Aston Martin Owners Club with that car. But law-wise, I'm not allowed to drive a British licensed car over here in Austria.
Same in Switzerland.
That's the same thing.
Yeah.
But the story, there's a special story to that car on top of that. About 5 years later, after 59, this car, in lack of originals, was built for a customer, and he went to Newport Pagnell first to purchase all the spare parts from the original car. And this car is built around the spares. So this car is considered to be 95% original without a race history. Story to the engine of that car. Why? Because you can tell there is a gap from the engine to the frame, which is about that wide, because originally this car was meant to be driven with the Lagonda 12-cylinder engine, but from the reglementation point of view, they weren't able to race that car at Le Mans with the 12-cylinder engine, so they had to rebuild the 6-cylinder engine, and this gives you a perfect front middle engine configuration. So that car is awfully quick. It's 800 kilogram to the engine spec of 333 brake horsepower at the moment. It's quick, it's very nice to drive. The limiting factors are basically the tires these days. Yeah. But as you're sitting literally on the rear axle, you know exactly where you are. So when it comes, the back comes loose, it's fun, really fun driving. Well, another story to be told about this car, there's also a history behind that. This is Fritz. Why it's called Fritz? Because it was the car of the town since I was young. And I know that car for ages, and Fritz was a cousin of my dad, and he unfortunately passed away in an avalanche. So the car went to his brother afterwards, and he has actually passed away as well. And I didn't dare to ask his widow for what happens to the car afterwards. Of course. I always felt this was a Schneider car and always should stay a Schneider car. And there 2 years were going by, and eventually I received a phone call, and she said, well, I reached the point now where I can actually deal with the thing, and I have an expertise from a specialist. But I told this guy, there is another gentleman in town who, when he pays me the same amount of money, the car goes to him. And that's how I got Fritz. So we took it down to the dealership, and eventually that car never got finished. It was sitting there for ages, and it's not finished yet. But eventually I found out that our dealership took this as a project for his mechanics. All the mechatronics these days, which are used just to plug in, were actually trained on this car, what it meant to fix a car out of that era. And they put in hours and hours and hours. And there were actually, it was a very teary moment when this car actually left the dealership. So it came back to me afterwards. So that car was redone in a very, very gentle way. The leather is still original. The painting is still the first layer of lack. So yeah, done to the best.
And it's an original CSL.
It is.
What's the engine, to be exact?
It's a 3.0 inline 6 BMW engine, considered to be one of the best 6-cylinder engines ever done out there. A Mercedes, the next baby to the collection, which I'm personally very fond of and very proud to have it. This is a 500 SLC, first ownership my dad. That's why it's called Johann, first name of my dad. And we unfortunately suffered a flood in town in 2005, where the whole garage was flooded up to the top. And this was the last car I unfortunately couldn't get out because the battery was empty. So we actually got rid of the water, got rid of the mud, pulled out Johann and said, what are we going to do now? And we said, well, we make a diplomatic decision. Let's see what it's underneath, whether there is any rust or any corrosion. And the moment it's there, we're not going to do anything. But there was nothing whatsoever. So we decided to rebuild the car from scratch. And fortunately, the car doesn't have this big amount of electronics in it, so it was a fairly easy project. No corrosion, as I was saying, but all the carpet, all the interiors and everything is still original, was actually washed, was dried, put together, and that's what you see here now. Everyday use cars, which for obvious reasons can't be new, because I'm always looking for the icons, and I think this beauty here, which is called Gina for the bodywork, is a 4.0 Ferrari engined Maserati Quattroporte. And I think this is probably one of the nicest cars Pininfarina did until that moment, and it's always still properly does the job. And taking a look at the license plates shows you that toy 1 is
this is toy number 1.
It's toy number 1.
Okay.
But there are other toy number 1s as well. Okay. If we turn around, which brings us back to the on the right hand side to the British factor. So one Aston Martin is never enough. We learned that lesson. This is a DB9 Series 1, which very many people don't know was done by Henrik Fisker. And this was his first and last project he did for Aston Martin. They didn't have any engineering at that time. The whole thing with engineering started when they moved from Newport Pagnell to Gaydon, and this was the first car ever done in Gaydon. And after he did the DB9 first series, he moved over to the US to do his thing, and Marek Reichmann took over after this. Standard configuration, special rims on it from the DBS. This is a 6-liter displacement V12 engine with 450 brake horsepower. This is, by the way, it's called Victor. Victor. This is a little bit of a tribute to Victor Gauntlet, because without Victor Gauntlet, as you know, in history, the company wouldn't be around anymore. Which brings us to Greta. Greta. This is Greta, my baby, the Ferrari 599 GTB, with a very nice spec, I think. The interior is a burgundy red, and originally it's glossy black, and now wrapped with a charcoal matte foil. I think it's like an upside down GTO up to a certain point, and it's a fabulous GT car. Really great.
Thank you so much for sharing your collection and your stories.
As you can tell, it was a huge privilege for me as well. Big fun to get my babies going and to share this, my hobby, my passion, with somebody who's interested as well.
Well, so I definitely am. You guys are. I heard also, as much as you're collecting cars, I've been admiring your shoes as well. Someone's told me you've got quite a collection of snakeskin shoes.
This is basically another
fantastic.
one.
You need to see these. These are just brilliant.
Well, I got them in all colors, basically.
I've heard rumors that you collect a few different things.
Well, you see, one hobby usually comes along with others as well.
It does, yeah.